And imagine that it took you so long to paint the Mona Lisa, and then at the end, you dip your fingers in ink and do this, right? After you just spent years doing this beautiful project, and you finally make that 1 in 32 odds animal, and then you just ruin it. You're just like, flex the specs.
Hey, welcome back to the Gecko Cove Connection. My name is Bobby, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Robby from Robby's Reptiles. Welcome, Robby.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on, pick your brain. Obviously, you are not a gargoyle guy, but you have a lot of great information about keeping New Caledonia species, and I really want to dive into some of your other skills, like photography and videography, because I really am envious now that I've started this YouTube channel, looking at some of your material. And that's how I found you initially. How long have you been on YouTube now?
I think for my reptile channel, I've been on YouTube for almost 2 years now. And then before that, when I was in the Army, I was doing YouTube videos and stuff. So I did that for 2 years of doing that. And then that's pretty much when I started getting into video. And then when I discharged out, it was like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to be in front of the camera or behind it? And so I chose to be behind the camera and started doing a bunch of work in Austin, San Antonio area for different clients, small businesses, mainly like fitness YouTubers was kind of like how I first started doing videos for money. And then it just all kept snowballing. And now I'm nice. I specialize in mini documentaries primarily, as well as corporate and, just sort of like that documentary style of corporate video, or hell, I've even been on actually the tallest volcano in the world, filming a documentary for St. Jude Children's Hospital now. And then that's kind of now my side business. The geckos have taken over pretty much my whole life.
That sounds awesome. It really does. So did you have any formal training, or did you teach yourself most of the things you know about photography, videography? Because I know you said you were in the Army.
As they call it, YouTube Academy is what taught me everything.
Yep. Yeah, no, a lot of us learn that way, whether it be geckos or any other side hobby that we have. So, you definitely have learned a lot, and I would love to learn from you a little bit today. Why don't we back up, though, a little bit, and since this is a gecko podcast, let's talk about how did you get into crested geckos, and where did that start?
Well, it was about, I think this is my 4th year currently breeding crested geckos specifically. Before that, I actually wanted to only specialize in tortoises. Specifically, my interest was in redfoot tortoises. And then I found that there were select few breeders around the world that had albino variants. And I befriended a breeder not locally, but in America, that had hypos. So I actually went really deep into trying to breed hypo redfoot tortoises. And I was like, well, I want to diversify a little bit. And that's what kind of led me to name my company Robby's Reptiles, as opposed to Robby's Redfoots, which still would have been a great alliteration name, or being like even now, I'm not Robby's Crested Geckos, because I do have hopes at, some point expanding to other species if they intrigue me enough. And so when I was working with the Redfoots, I decided that, let me get into another species that has a faster turnaround time, so that I can get into the groove of being an animal breeder, because I had no experience before this. So I figured, I looked around, leopard geckos, they didn't seem to be too worth getting into. Then I looked into stuff. Originally, I didn't like geckos that much. And then I found crested geckos. And I saw, wow, these all have like these spikes all around their head, right? And I'd never touched one. So a lot of people, like when I'm at a show and I show them a crested gecko, they're like, ooh, does it hurt? And I'm like, no, they literally are the softest creatures on the planet. So I just became utterly fascinated with the colors, the patterns, the head structure, so many different things that crested geckos have to offer that blow, a lot of other species out of the water in terms of the variety and the amount that you can really focus. Because, with ball pythons, I don't think that a big part of ball python breeding is focusing on the head structure or the body structure. It's something to look for to make sure you have a healthy animal. But I don't think that there's ball python breeders that, have the best head structure or have the best, body structure, blah, blah. So with crested geckos, I just saw that it also was new at the time. When I was first getting into it 4 years ago, there were only like 500 morph market listings. Now there's like 15,000 morph market listings. That might be an exaggeration. I haven't looked. Right? It's grown a lot exponentially, especially with the 2020 boom and everything like that. So I really just ended up getting in at the perfect time. I got in technically early 2019, but I don't say established until 2020 because that number looks better. But now some people call me a COVID baby in the gecko hobby, but I actually was in a little bit earlier.
Yep. Yeah, it's like the whole I don't want to be a millennial, I'm right on the cusp kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting how many people did jump in during COVID. And obviously that completely changed the game of crested gecko breeding for, the foreseeable future. But what's interesting with your story is that, from an outsider's perspective, just watching your channel, look at behind you. I mean, the setup that you have is absolutely phenomenal.
And hell, a year and a half ago, I was still in my closet.
You couldn't tell that, And so how did you get from 2020 or 2019 to now and grow so quickly? Right? Because the advice that most people get is start slow, get a few babies, wait, a few years, and then you can kind of see if you even like it. You basically said, screw that advice. I'm going in full bore, and you've been very successful from what I can tell. So, do you think everybody should do that, or what was your recipe for success while doing that?
I mean, it definitely has been a lot of, you can say luck. You can, if you're religious, you can say, being blessed, stuff like that. So I personally just think that, I was really blessed and I came into the right things at the right time in my life. In 2019, that I was actually first hired on with a really big company, and they were paying me really well to be their full-time videographer. I was flying all over the country. And so what I did with all of that, extra income, because before that I was living in like the ghettos of Austin in a 300 square foot studio apartment is where I started my gecko company. And, now I've got, a big house, or a Texas house. I got an acre of land. I got this building now for the geckos, but it definitely 4 years seems like a really fast journey. But I mean, for me, really, there's been countless ups and downs. There are harsh realities in being in this business in terms of sometimes you go 6 months without making a single sale. And so you got to have other sources of revenue, and you got to, make smart business decisions. And, but yeah, the way that I was able to grow so quickly, my basic way of explaining to any breeder is like, right, I started out with a $150 female and a $250 male or something like that. I bred them, and then I was able to make, let's say, 6 babies. Didn't really know what I was doing. Didn't know that sometimes they can stop retaining sperm. You just need to re-up them, because females are usually good to have, 8 clutches or so in like one season, I'd say. It of course depends. But so, right, I only had 3 or 4 clutches, a few eggs failed. And then I was able to make back all the money that I had spent on those 2 geckos with the babies that I sold. So then let's say that I made $700 off of all the babies. Well, I just went and bought a $700 gecko. And I was like, whatever, it proved out. The math lines up. It makes sense. Just go into it. And I've always just been the type to, you can ask any of my friends, my wife, anyone that knows me. I am extreme. Anytime I find something that I think will work, I risk it all and I go into it. And only recently have I been dialing it back a little bit and not risking it all. But the way that I was able to grow quickly, I had to take on credit card debt in order to buy at the right times, even things that maybe I couldn't afford at the time. And I'm still working to, get out of debt. So I wouldn't recommend this strategy to anybody. I'm risky. And that's how I went into this. And then the way that I was able to get the building was through business loans and stuff like that. So, there's multiple different strategies. Of course, if I just had the money, I never would have, used debt. But seeing as I started this when I was 21, fresh out of the Army when I was 20, I didn't have a lot of options, and I saw the opportunity, so I took it. And then now I'm only 25, and I think that, I've got another 60 years in me to do this, because it's not very taxing on my body to take care of geckos. So I'm really excited for the future. But no, I definitely wouldn't say that everyone should do that strategy. It's very risky. But where there's high risk, there's high reward. And I was just able to, apply, because I didn't just think, oh, okay, well, I can get a bunch of geckos and then make money, right? It's not at all what I thought. I have my know-how about marketing, my know-how about video and photo. And I saw that in this market, one, there were like no YouTube videos about crested geckos really, except for Tiki's geckos, maybe saw stick reptiles. Those are like the two you can ask anyone that has a gecko. They know those people. But no one had 4K quality. No one had, really nice lighting. Nobody had all of these things that I knew I could bring to the table, and my ability to deliver to camera in a personal yet formal way, or, really easy to digest way. I knew that, okay, this market is lacking a really big factor, and I'm going to provide that. And so that was kind of what made me feel very safe risking it all in order to go into this, was knowing that I can fill in a niche in this niche that is not filled at all.
Yeah, and most people don't realize that you can't really be super successful if you don't have that level of risk. I don't care if it's geckos or starting your own company. There's risk involved in almost anything really worth doing to an extreme level, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going a different route just because I am not looking at this as a business. If I can make a few extra dollars and have it self-sufficient, fantastic, right? But I have a different full-time job. No, nothing wrong with either way. I actually look at what I did. I went and risked my future on a master's degree that I kind of look back and I go, how much did I spend on that? You want to talk about some debt? Holy cow. Master's degrees, guys.
No college, no nothing.
The rate of return is not what they're promising you for a lot of those. Yeah. And so, that's actually a trend I'm seeing. I'm a counselor. I work with high school students talking about their futures all the time. And so that's, not that college isn't a great route for some, but it's not the best route for everybody. And I think that's a trend that I'm seeing a lot in my industry, is that people are looking for alternatives to not go into debt, and be more profitable right away. But yeah, so you're starting a business, which is great. And you're going to have to take on some debt there. Now, if you could go back in time and talk to, 21-year-old Robby, what's the one thing you would do slightly different if you could?
Instead of thinking that the only way for me to advance quickly was through credit cards, I would have just gone to a bank, given them a business plan, and asked for a business or personal loan. It would have had better interest rates. It would have, I would have been able to negotiate a little bit more with an actual person. So I think that definitely would have been the smarter choice. But again, I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about debt, and, because there's definitely great ways to get into debt and leverage it so that you're not only not having to pay taxes, so that you're also not having to pay insane interest rates. And I know that there's even other things that you do to be safe. But like a lot of times I see people say like, oh, well, what should I do if I want to start my gecko business? And they'll say like, first you need to come up with the logo, you need to come up with the business name, and blah, blah, blah. Dude, I've got no logo. I've got no business name. I've got no LLC or anything like that. No, I'm working with my CPA to try and work some sort of S Corp thing out. But like, guys, I'm almost 5 years into it, and I haven't needed a logo. I haven't needed an LLC and all that. It's smart to get if you're trying to do something like tax-wise. But of course, by the way, this is not financial advice in any way. But from my understanding of it, the way that I've always looked at it is like, you got to just start and worry about it later. The success will roll. It will start snowballing if you just are putting in all the work up front. Worry about those small little details later. There's been maybe 2 situations where I've needed a logo. So I just used my face.
Yeah, and like you said, just start, because there's so many times I just wanted to start this channel, right? And for one reason or another, it wasn't the right time, or I made an excuse. And finally, with SoSticks, I saw one of his videos and I'm like, you know what? I love his videos. I think I can do something not that good, but I could do something similar. And that was my very first video, which anybody can go back and watch. His blow mine out of the water, but I got it out there and it got me rolling, and I'm having fun with it. And, you started and you went and you're having fun with it. Even the videography, we're going to talk about that in just a second. But, I guarantee that you're when you first started out, if you were learning through experience and through, YouTube Academy, right? That your first few gigs were nowhere near the quality that they are now, and the life experience that you've gained just through the journey is worth so much more. And so, I give you kudos to giving that advice, because a lot of people have paralysis by analysis for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my favorite saying is done is better than perfect, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, okay, let's get into the photography thing. All right. Most people watching this are gecko people, and we want to take better photos. I'm going to tell you a story real quick about your channel, and it's a little bit embarrassing. So I'm doing a little research for this, as I normally do for these episodes. And I've watched a ton of your videos over the years, right? I've been subscribed for probably over probably 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And,
really?
and everyone that comes out, I pretty much watch them all. I love them. Okay. But here's the thing. I went and looked at your most popular videos, right? And I didn't even realize that one of your first original videos was how to take better pictures of geckos. I'm like, so here I am wondering. And for some reason, I didn't look to your videos under that exact title until just recently. So yeah. I think that's kind of funny. Sometimes that information's out there, and because it doesn't, the algorithm doesn't kick it to me for whatever reason.
It's not insane.
I didn't see it till
crested
today.
Gecko unboxing or $14,000 crested gecko unboxing. It's how to take better pictures, and people are like, oh, boring, and the algorithm doesn't recommend it.
Which is the information I want, like really want. I do find that funny. You mentioned that your most popular video is the 12,000K unboxing. Okay, it blows numbers wise everything out of the water. But you've got another video with almost the exact same title. It's the $8,000 crested gecko unboxing. So
people just
has like a third of the views. So I mean, that's another thing is like I made one video where it was like, I'm never going to vend reptile shows. And then I planned within like a few months to upload that I vended a show and then like changed my mind or talk about my experience, blah, blah, blah. But then all the footage from that show that I vended got corrupted. And then the next one that I did, it was too small to really film about and blah, blah, blah. So it was like a year later until I made the follow-up video. And so everyone just thought that I hated shows and blah, blah, blah. But people like, another thing you have to consider with like YouTube is what's clickable, And I say this before, if you say like, I like the movie Shrek, or if you say Shrek is a cinematic masterpiece and you should be researching it in order to learn cinematography, people are going to click that as opposed to just seeing someone say, I like this. But also the way that, and those videos also aren't even clickbait. Like that is pretty much like the price of all the geckos that were in the video. But I think people think that it was one gecko that would cost that much or something like that, which is fine. I mean, no one's really asked for clarification. It's just kind of a way to get people to go to the video. Because, I mean, some geckos that I have, each one maybe is like $3,000 to $5,000, maybe a couple. They can get really expensive. But it's definitely, I mean, if you look at Mr. Beast's videos, $1 house versus $100 million house. Or I gave someone $10,000 cash, blah, blah, blah. It's when people see the numbers that they can really relate to or they can't fathomably relate to, that makes them click on it. And it's just a more enticing title than me doing, really awesome crested gecko unboxing. If someone sees a price tag, that makes them think, whoa, wait, hold on. People are paying this much for animals. Whoa, wait, this gecko is worth that much? Wait, this person's doing this? Oh, wait, they're a full-time gecko breeder? Whoa, whoa, whoa. And that brings a lot of new people to the hobby. So yeah, it is a bit of an extraordinary title, but it honestly isn't even clickbait, and it does serve a purpose. And that's something that, again, until you start trying to think of your own, it seems so simple, right? Most people go, oh, I could make a title that's clickable. And I can go and do that. It come up with that in 10 seconds. And literally, they spend hardly any time on that thumbnail, right? And the title.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
That makes such a difference because, and it's just hard. They're very hard, But, a good thumbnail, it rides that borderline of questioning, making somebody want to click versus clickbait, right? But that's the fun of it. So, I mean, I clicked on things, and even though it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be, it was great information. And so I don't get as angry as some people on the internet with quote unquote clickbait. So now, not only do I not mind your titles because of that, but also when it's backed up with good content, right? And what I really have noticed, like you said, there was a niche that you didn't see the high quality. I mean, it looks like you've got a studio. It looks like you've really, I know that you've invested some good money in equipment, right? Which makes a huge difference. But how long did it take you to plan all these videos out? I mean, even just your Tinley walkthrough blew me away. I mean, I did my own walkthrough just with my cell phone and tried to make it the best I could. But, yours is, I literally messaged you. I'm like, please teach me how to make it look anywhere near this good.
And the problem is that I don't plan any of my videos at all. Like when I go to Tinley or something, I'm just holding my camera and I'm just like, hey, what's something cool you got at this table? Talk to me. And so like there's like double the amount of interviews or double the amount of footage that I have, but I have to cut it because it doesn't meet my standard of like, like there was one shot where this guy was showing some beautiful geckos, but his lights that were over his thing just blew it out because he was showing white geckos, which are going to reflect light. So the camera couldn't even pick up their detail. The white balance was all over the place because of all the, the battling different sources of light and colors. So it just wasn't worth putting in the video. But I mean, that just comes down to my experience. A lot of the time, my clients in video really love that I can just be thrown into the battlefield, let's say, and figure it out and be able to deliver a product. And that's kind of just become my niche because most business people I've found, at least small business owners, they don't want you to have a big crew. They don't want you to be like, hey, we got like a 15-man crew. We need like this much. And here's all of our day rates. They want to go to, Robby and say, hey, we need a video like this for this at this event. And I'm like, cool. And then I show up and I just know what they probably want. They like not having to communicate that to me, and they like not having to supervise me. And so that's how I've always done just all video at this point. I just show up, I'll do what I can, and then in the editing room, I'll make it, a cohesive, nice, easy to follow video with, proper L cuts, J cuts, B-roll, stuff like that, hide cuts. That's called all stuff that kind of just separates, like regular old YouTube videos from like the more professional looking. It's like as soon as you just basically understand to use footage to cover up all the cuts you're making, because nobody speaks coherently. Very few people do. A couple of times I'll say on this podcast, or maybe you'll pause or something. And so the beauty of editing is that you can cover all that up. So my YouTube videos seem like I'm perfectly scripted and I'm saying like all the right things. I am cutting and mixing and matching footage, rearranging the order of some footage, putting B-roll to cover all of that. And so because when people are watching my YouTube video, I always joke about this is like, if I did have like merch or something, what am I supposed to do? Have my face in the top right corner? Like that's pretty much like my company is just Robby, right? So I always joke like that, but I know that people that are watching my YouTube videos, they want to see the geckos. They don't care about me. So I try to be on screen as little as possible, unless it's really informative. I have to like teach a lesson essentially.
Right. No, that makes sense. So, okay, let me ask a concrete question here about the videos. If someone's brand new, right? Do you have a resource that you really like? Let's just focus on videography for this. If they're trying to create a video on their geckos, I love the advice of be out of camera as much as possible. People want to see the geckos. I think that's really great. But is there any resource that you could point them to, maybe another channel that you learned from? Because you were talking about all the different cuts, the L cut, the J cut.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
I mean, really all you need to do is just, just start looking like, how to film nice looking video or something. Just, I haven't watched in like 6 years any of this type of video stuff, but, and a lot of it is experience. I've worked on set with big crews before, so I've been able to see like, oh, okay, pretty much everybody does it this way for this type of thing. But I mean, the main thing to take away, if you guys are not wanting to read into it, TLDR, is you want big soft light, you want dynamic depth in your images, and you want to make sure it's in focus, right? That's an important part. It's mainly just lighting is the number one thing.
Harder to do with that than with geckos. Yeah, definitely with the soft light, like even with what, my basic setup that I have here, I've got two softbox lights left and right of me. And so I have to even change that because I've got a big natural light, which doesn't affect me typically during nighttime. But yeah, so, these are all the little things that you have to learn. And you do one thing better each video, right? And if you can just try to focus on one thing at a time, each video will progressively get better and better. And that's my goal, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've upgraded my audio a certain video, and the light boxes started to come in, and my camera I upgraded, a little bit earlier, and I'll probably upgrade that again. So, just try to continue to make it a little bit better. Now,
Yeah.
with photography, I think this is the number one thing that annoys me when looking at geckos to buy is just photos that don't truly represent the actual gecko. And typically it's poor quality over super highly edited, other than someone just taking saturation and moving it all the way up to 100. That's always comical to me because I'm like, anybody with a brain cell can see clearly that you've just saturated your picture. But is there anything, if you were to give an absolute noob some advice, maybe with a cell phone, right, who doesn't have a DSLR, what's the one thing that they could do to make their photos better?
So what I always tell people is, a little bit more advanced would be try to have the same area or a place that has the same lighting. Because the reason why people are uploading photos, and it's not, let's say 99% of the time, it's not even like malicious, like they're trying to misrepresent the gecko on purpose. Because that is pretty rare, surprisingly, in this hobby. But it's just not knowing how. And it 99% of the time, it is white balance that's off. Your phone camera is going to automatically change its color settings. And it's going to adjust how blue or how orange or how green or how purple the image is. Like this right now, my whole setup in this building is set so that this camera can point anywhere in this building because it's a constant, exactly the same lighting, exactly the same background. I know anywhere that I film in here, it should have the exact same colors. I have accurate lights that are high enough quality to where the color does not shift. And so I spent like a whole day, even like 2 days, just setting all the settings on my camera so that I can just pick it up, take a picture, and upload it to my phone, just plug it in, and I never have to edit again. And you can do that with any quality camera. You could probably even do that with a phone. You just have to have a consistent source of light. But what I always tell people is if you just want to be able to, use your phone and take a good picture so you can list it, go next to a window. Again, like I said, the key to lighting is big, soft light. A window is large. The sun is the light source, which is an accurate, natural source of light, which often people say, they look best in daylight. It's mainly because they don't know anything about, color science and lighting and everything like that. But there is truth to that statement. It's what our eyes are naturally adjusted to. That's what we're meant to see things under. Go next to a big window and side light the gecko in your hand. That's what I do. And so like for me, all of my photos forever have been just in my hand. It's way easier to take a picture of a gecko in my hand than it is to get it to pose on a prop and then go away. The other thing is, I do have a different style than other gecko photographers or people that breed geckos. The classic photo style you'll see is gecko on a prop, and they're using like a 100 millimeter lens. But I found when I was first getting into geckos, it misrepresented the size of the gecko almost every time. And so I would buy a gecko. I mean, this is when I was first starting. So like now when I see the grams, I know how big the gecko is. But before, I've never seen a gecko in person. So when I first bought one, I was like, wow, it looks so big. And it came in as like a little juvenile. It's because they were using a macro lens that's 100 mil from far away. It's compressing the image. It's blowing up the background. A bunch of different technical stuff. It's manipulating lighting to give a different compression, which is big words that I should avoid using. But, so I started okay, well, I want to take it on my hand because eventually, my hand isn't going to grow. So anytime someone sees a photo of a listed gecko, my hand is reference, and it's going, that's the constant in any photo that I've ever taken. It's my hand. So, you see one that's only this big, it's, roughly this big.
Mm-hmm.
You see one that's taking up my whole hand, it's a big gecko, it's taking up my whole hand. I have the average person-sized hand probably. And I take photos with wide-angle lenses, and other than, all my lighting and quality and everything like that. I forgot what the original question was.
Yeah, no, that you answered it. So I think those are all great tips for people just starting to make their quality of videos better, or quality of photos better. The soft light really does help. I did like how you mentioned, you want to do a side view. If the light's coming in, right, if I'm facing the window here, I don't want to be holding the gecko up like this and having, the camera try to shoot into the light, because that just blows it out.
Yeah,
I find having it to the side is really the best. And then, sometimes away from it, you can get that, but that makes a big difference. I think people get frustrated because they go, well, I used the light the right way, right? And you didn't.
Yeah.
But
and another thing
what I do, and actually I've got to find something new.
What I will see often is people always advocate for using a light box. And for product photography and stuff, that's great if you're building a set. Because if you just take a picture of a gecko in a white void of nothing, that isn't a very appealing photo. Yeah, you might be doing the best objective reality maybe, but you can spice it up a little. And so I need to revamp my how to photograph geckos video, because that was with YouTube, the first 50 videos you upload mean nothing towards your channel. It's just a way to get initial people, and eventually you'll snowball, and then that's when your quality really matters. So the first 25 videos I uploaded, I didn't give a crap. So if you look back at any of my old videos, my color sometimes is way off, stuff like that, because I didn't have time. I was just I'm too busy, whatever, no one's going to watch this anyway. Click, 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 done, upload, get back to work. But light boxes get rid of all contrast, and not in an actual photo setting of just contrast. I mean in a lighting way. So with this lighting setup that I have all of this natural shadows happening, even though it's just top down. If this was actually side lit, it'd be even more dramatic. And then you see that I have this Rembrandt shadow right here. And then I have, and you do too, you're backlit by the window, which is separating you from the background. So really, if I wanted to be try hard, I would have a spotlight up on the roof pointing on the back of me, preferably on the side of the shadow, because then it's going to be darker on this side of me, but then I'm going to be highlighted the edge of me, and that's called an edge light, and then that separates me from the background even more. But that's interview type lighting. When you're photographing a gecko, I have always loved the look of having this natural shadow. That I never saw any other gecko breeder doing photos like that. And that is why, initially, if I look at my photos every single day, so I don't have this feeling. But maybe, your first time seeing my photos, maybe it really made you stop and look. And you're why does this look so much better than other stuff? Which I'm not saying I have the best photos. There's a lot of other people that take amazing photos.
Yep.
Or the people that do Nat Geo level macro shots of
there's a reason
frogs.
I'm asking you.
Yeah. There's people that do a whole different style of great photography. Mine, I'm more video centric. So I don't do flash or anything like that. I always do video, and then photo comes after. But yeah, so for my photography, that dynamic shadow just from my lighting is why it makes people stop and go, wow, I don't know why this is a really good photo, but it is. It's because of the shadows. And so I always tell people, don't be afraid for there to be shadows in your shot. Because even sometimes I can get really nitty gritty to the point where, depending on the color of the gecko I'm photographing, it might look like I'm manipulating the photo because my hand is a different shade. But that's the light reflecting off of the gecko reflecting onto my hand. And then my hand is reflecting the reflected light, which is, all that light refraction. You know how if you look into an ear, you can see that its light is going through it? That's all part of understanding lighting. Because sometimes this might happen with a gecko, and if they're a yellow gecko, and then it refracts or reflects onto my hand, it makes my hand look kind of sickly sometimes. Or maybe if they have a green base color, blah, blah, blah. So there's a whole lot of other things to get in depth, but I try to not. I used to try to fine tune all of that so they all looked identical, but now it's guys, I'm using the same settings. Whatever you see is what my camera's doing, and I'm not editing it at all. because, it's just a nightmare.
I kind of go down different rabbit holes. So, hopefully if anybody finds this interesting, you have no idea what we're talking about, definitely do some more research, watch some of Robby's videos. And if he updates a new one, I think it'll be fantastic. So I think that'd be a great idea if you did another one of those. I'll definitely watch, because right now I've got this back here, which is a light box, right? And it's easier to control, right? Especially when I have a baby, I'm less worried it's going to, if I take it outside, that it's going to run away on me.
Yeah.
But the lights blew out on mine. So I've actually been taking my soft light box and putting it on top and just leaving the top open. Mm-hmm. It's a makeshift thing. But my thing is, like you said, I didn't just put in the white background or the silver background. I have everything blacked out completely. And then I have a rock that sits in front of some fake foliage. And I just wanted to give some contrast to it. So if you look at all the pictures I post where I'm not just holding the gecko, which those are usually iPhone photos and they're pretty bad. But anything that you see on that black rock is my DSLR, which I need to learn better settings on that, because half the time it won't
settings
actually
are not
click.
going to make it
I don't
better,
know if it's just,
by the way. That's like a big misconception of that. Like, if I have the right settings, what are your settings? I need to copy your settings. All the camera's settings are excluding color settings, right? And then we get into different camera brands have different color science. Like, if I filmed myself on a Sony, I would look like I'm sick or have jaundice, but I'm filming on a Nikon, which is known worldwide as one of the best for color science. Professionals use Nikon. You don't see anyone photographing the Olympics with, a Canon or something like that. And maybe there are 99% of like Nat Geo photographers or people that are trying to capture true to life imagery. They use Nikon because Nikon's a professional. It's professional tools. And the camera that built up my entire Instagram, by the way.
Oh, we're going to get some comments for you saying that.
Oh, yeah, good. Until I was at like 9,000 followers, I used the Nikon D700 for every single one of my photos. That is a $350 camera that is 15 years old, but it's renowned as being one of the best cameras ever made. It has a unique sensor with a unique color science that is closely emulating film by accident. Nikon just made a beautiful camera. So you can buy that and my favorite lens for it, a 35mm D series 1.8 for less than $500. And now you're taking the exact same quality photos as me. It's only a 12 megapixel sensor. Megapixels don't really matter in order to like do a billboard, right? These huge signs that are the size of this building. You need 2 megapixels in order to do a professional billboard. So megapixels are not going to matter when it comes to what's on your Instagram phone, let alone that Instagram hates quality and will trash anything that you upload that is not on your phone, especially Reels now.
Yep. Oh, man. No, that's really cool. We could be, geeking out and going down this rabbit hole even more. And I'd love to keep doing that maybe. But I think, these were great tips on hopefully, the setup. I think I have that camera. Actually, wait, I want to check to see which camera I have.
It might
I
be
don't even know.
The D750
right? I know it's a Nikon.
is more popular. Or I think you have the 7500.
I have the D3300.
3300? I don't know that one. But that's going to be a crop sensor.
Yeah. Costco. I know that I got it at Costco back before I went on my African safari, and it takes decent photos, and I like it. Nikon, my stepmom's really big into photography, and I guarantee she has one of the nicer Nikons. But it is funny how people are very brand loyal, just like with Apple and Samsung. People go. My wife will fight me; she hates Apple.
In cinematography, is hook up with the cameras, marry the lenses. That's the saying, or it's date the camera, marry the lenses. I prefer to say hook up with the cameras, because truly, a camera is simply a tool to accomplish a job. It's not anything that really matters. What matters are the lenses that you shoot on. But like, I just looked up a D700, and then I found on eBay D700 12.1 megapixels body only. That's fine. You don't want to get that. It comes with a battery, a charger, and a card for $327 and $15 shipping. That is cheap. That's cheaper than a Gecko. And so it's like
That's
some
dirt cheap.
people,
Yeah.
are like, oh, I don't want to spend $500 on a camera. It's like, well, I just saw you buy a $2,000 Gecko. Like, I know you are spending money. Or like, even if you
Right.
only bought a $150 Gecko or a $250 Gecko, for a little bit more, you buy a camera that takes better quality photos. And legitimately, you will have better sales if you have better quality photos because you can show what you're selling. And like, even to
Right.
my normal clients that I try to pitch to, it's like, you guys are just doing like terrible video, terrible photo. You have no website video. You have no real product photos. Imagine what it could be, because nowadays people don't like going in person to buy, jewelry or buying clothes or whatever. So invest in the photos so that people that are buying online, because you live on the other side of the country, but you want the Gecko, take the best photos you can. And then people are going to be willing to spend a lot more if they can see a lot more.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me to my next point, which was, with you and me working, on YouTube, you've been on it a lot longer, you're more successful. Have you seen, I've even seen some success with me selling geckos just because I'm on this channel, right? People reaching out to me. Now, my sales aren't through the roof. I still have geckos if people are interested, right? But do you find that people, just because you are Robby's Reptiles from YouTube, that is a great marketing, platform for you?
YouTube is free advertising, and a lot of people don't see it that way. Or let's say that you want to learn something. I rarely go to Google to look anything up anymore, mainly just because Google, will show you what they want to show you. But like, I don't like go on to Brave or Bing or anything, and I don't look up anything anymore to find out how to do something. I go to YouTube. Because the other day, my mini split was leaking water and it was dripping directly onto my outlet, which would have exploded or started a fire, right? So I turned it off, started dealing with it. I didn't go to Google. I went to YouTube. Mini split is leaking water inside. Boom. A video immediately 3 minutes long shows you exactly how to take care of it. People treat YouTube as a search engine. They don't treat it as a place where you go to watch, wholesome vlogs and stuff. Sure, you do. But 90% of people that are looking up how to do something are going to YouTube and they're looking up how to do this. Can you do this? Can you make this? Treat YouTube as a search engine and you will have the lead generation alone that my YouTube channel has done for me and my business is insane. Honestly, I really should be making way more videos, but I have so many other things that I'm juggling all the time that it's really tedious to get into here. Okay, do this, and then I got to edit it. Even though I can edit all of my videos in like 30 minutes, even though it only takes me 15 minutes to film a video, right? There's just so many different things, and then I have my level of perfection that I want to reach. So, but this year has been the greatest for me in terms of sales. I think by June, I already made more money than the year before and the year before combined, because of how much lead generation YouTube was creating for me.
Wow.
Not even just like, I'm sure there's a lot of other aspects. I've been on people's podcasts or I'm, at shows and stuff. I also did a show and it was really successful. It was the first big show that I did. But YouTube is so worth it. Even if all of your videos suck, somebody is going to like it and watch, I see other people, that have YouTube videos. They only got like a couple hundred subscribers. It's still generating leads for them. And not even about sales or anything like that. It's generating a community. It's generating fans or people that are excited about your projects. Because like now, most of my videos, I'm making so many geckos that I'm like, let me show you this project and this project and this project and this project. They get less views than the flashy $10,000 unboxing or, how to take care of a crested gecko, which I still have not made that video, believe it or not. And I've still gotten this far, which is not even that far. I only have like 3,000 subscribers. So by no means am I a successful YouTuber. I am just a company that has a YouTube channel that is providing content that no one else is providing.
Yeah. And, I think you're absolutely right with the whole, when anybody says how to start a YouTube channel, it's start with those how to X, right? It's the searchable things. And I'm actually pretty bad at it. I probably should be doing more of those things. I find them a little bit tedious, to be honest with you, the how-to videos. So I probably should start doing that just a little bit more so people can discover me. Because, you say, oh, I'm not a successful YouTuber at 3,000 subscribers. I love 3,000, but again, for me doing this for only a few months now, I'm more than happy where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's consistency. And I mean, like,
I
even,
think it's really cool that you can niche down.
oh yeah, even now, right at my almost 4,000 subscribers, I make like $40 a month off of ad revenue, right? The ads are not where it's at. You don't really make money. Although I do have, whoops, I shook the camera. I do have a really, really high, I forgot what the actual word is, but or the acronym, but it's essentially how much advertisers will pay for 1,000 views of your video. I have an incredibly high number. I think it's like advertisers pay $11 per 1,000 views that I get, is what they're willing to pay, which is
Oh, wow.
really high. Usually, like, for example, if I was a gaming channel on YouTube, it'd be like $3 per 1,000 views, maybe $1. But if I was a real estate agent making YouTube videos and house tours, that's like $25 to $50 per 1,000 views. So because they know people that are watching real estate videos or how to invest in real estate videos have money, are there to learn and spend money. So advertisers pay more. But when it comes to gaming, they know that it's primarily children that are not going to spend any money unless it's some scam ad. So that's why all the kids get the scam ads. And click this to get some free Fortnite bucks or whatever, because they know the audience. So for me, I think even my audience is like, it's only 60% male, but it's 40% female. And that my average viewer is 25 to 35. I have a very low amount of 16 to 18-year-old viewers, and I have a very low amount of 17 to 25-year-old viewers. It's primarily 25 to 35 that watch my channel.
And that's an interesting fact, too. I wonder, because my stats, when I look at them, are very similar to that, right? As far as who's watching my videos. Mm-hmm. The younger generation doesn't watch YouTube as much, right? I work with high school students, so I wonder if we're missing out on getting
TikTok,
them some
if you
content.
Want that audience, it's on TikTok.
I refuse to get on TikTok.
I refuse too, and I know I'm missing out. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they'll age out of it and come to YouTube eventually, find our videos. But yeah,
Maybe.
I can't do it. I've seen what it does to kids.
Yeah, I can't.
So,
and I don't
fair enough.
I don't want to just be another asset to the Chinese government is the main reason that I don't have TikTok.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, we'll get into politics another day. That's a different podcast. Okay, let's talk about how, you're getting all these customers, right? And that's fantastic to hear that this is the best year you've had, because all you hear is doom and gloom everywhere, that the market's down, that nobody's selling. And it is down. I think overall the economy is down, which is going to affect, a commodity like geckos, right? But we don't need to get into that. My question is, so with all these customers, and like you said, you only have so much time, I think, how do you maintain those customers? How do you provide better customer service? Because that's one thing people don't realize when they work in this kind of industry. They start selling geckos and, I like animals better than I like people. Well, guess what? You work in an industry where people are your customers. Mm-hmm. So how do you differentiate yourself with customer service?
I mean, and there still is, this still is a downturn in the market, let's say, because of a lot of different factors. Like there's the housing bubble, there's the used car bubble, everything's popping, right? So like money is, groceries have doubled in price since the year 2000. Times are really hard right now, and so
if you're lucky.
While my sales have been better than ever, my average price per gecko is really low compared to what it was, in 2020, let's say. 2020, you could have a bog standard phantom orange female, but she's ready to breed, $750. Now she's going to be down to $350, $400, because, we're not in that, name your price, there's zero supply type environment. And so a lot of people I see are freaking out. I've seen, I think, over 12 people get out of the hobby entirely, sell entire collections. A lot of people panic dropping all of their prices. And now, like with Cappuccinos, I have a lot invested into Cappuccinos, and now they're less than 10% of what I bought them for as full adult breeders. But, if you think long term, there really are never any losses. And that's something important to think about too. But in terms of, customer service and, I'm not trying to say like, wow, guys, I'm doing so well. Look at me, blah, blah, blah. It's still been tough. There's a lot of other expenses that I have, running this company, way more than I think anyone even realizes. And another interesting factor that we can get into later is if you stop investing, you're punished, if that makes sense, whether it be taxes or whether it be in social eye or in social media or in, the hobbies perspective. If you aren't always kind of growing or acquiring new projects or leveling up certain breeders, you're going to fall behind because everybody else is constantly doing that, which is another expense to almost kind of plan for. But for customer service this year, I mean, I offer deals all the time. If someone wants to get multiple geckos, even if it was a booming economy where I could list anything for any price and it sold. If someone's buying 5 geckos from me, probably going to give them a free gecko, or I'm probably going to, give them a good discount. Maybe, I almost all the time I'll offer free shipping, even though nowadays the average box I ship is like $90. Even with all my discounts that I get with Ship Your Reptiles, even with all of my built up credit there, shipping is expensive. The materials are expensive. Everything's expensive. But, if someone is buying $2,500 worth of geckos from you, to me, that's like, so
what's $100?
Yeah, right. What's adding in, a nice tiger or like a phantom, right? Everyone can use a phantom, which is just a patternless, if you say, right? To keep it simple for the gargoyle gecko people here.
Yep.
Or, a tiger, anything like that. I've got 350 babies. What's that really to me? They'll feel, and then that's the thing. It's not necessarily, I don't want this to come off as like, oh, you're like playing your customers like a violin or like a fiddle, right? But it's like, you give them that free gecko because they got a couple of stuff, or you give them that good discount. They will feel like they owe you. And then they're going to sing your praises to other people when they say, whoa, where'd you buy that gecko? I got this from Robby. He even gave me this free lily because I bought so much. Look at this lily. It's going to be in this project. I can make fraps with it now, and this is that, and I got it for free. Definitely should go buy from him. He'll hook you up. And just, building that rapport over time. And, one thing also is, a review on your Morph Market is so valuable. So, I mean, like, a lot of people don't have a lot of reviews, and it's because they're afraid to say, hey, once the person texts you like, hey, the gecko's here, it's happy, safe. Like, hey, I'm so glad that, everything turned out well. If you wouldn't mind, here's a link to leave me a review. It really helps my business out, because it does. Because when someone brand new comes to your Morph Market and they see you have 5 reviews, they're 5-star reviews. But nowadays, a 5-star review to me kind of means nothing. But then a 4-star review means everything. You're like, wait, why did they get 4 stars instead of 5? Kind of like how if your Uber driver has 4.2 stars, you're
Right.
like, what did this guy do? Which is just, it kind of is devaluing the idea of a 5-star review. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. Things like that are just going to go so far. And
with the whole, you want to ask people for reviews and just those little extra things. Nobody wants to feel during either a trade or a sale. Everybody wants a deal. Everybody wants to feel valued, right? And it doesn't matter if you're selling geckos or you go to a restaurant and they give you that little extra if it's your birthday, they give you that little extra piece of cake that doesn't cost them anything, right? Those are the things you remember. Those are the things, again, like you say, if you feel valued, if you feel like someone went the extra mile or they didn't have to give you the deal, they didn't have to give you the free shipping, but they did, it makes you want to go back to that person, right? Where as if you've got someone who on the other end of the spectrum that you feel like, they kind of squeezed me for the money, right? Or, you know what, I it was okay, but I felt like I sort of got a little bit screwed looking back, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to go back to them for a gecko. You're going to never tell your friends, hey, go check out X, Y, and Z, exotics, because you don't have a good gut feeling about working with that individual.
Yeah.
And so I think, going that little extra mile, no matter what it is, makes such a huge difference, not just with initial sales, but also repeat business and then word of mouth, because this is word of mouth. I mean, this hobby is small.
Yeah.
new
way
Cal
smaller than we
people.
even
We're
think.
not as many as we think. Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to a few people because I've done just like I'm just about to do a trade. I'm actually after this recording going to go drop off some geckos in the mail, and you know I'm doing a trade. I won't say who, just in case they don't want me to say, but you know they made me feel really special, right? They're giving me a gecko that I feel like I can't believe they said yes, right? And then I did another trade yesterday for 3 geckos, and I was only expecting 2, right? I was trading
You cut
2
out.
Chihuahua. I was expecting 2 really nice gargoyles, and this person just went above and beyond and goes, you know what? Pick 3. Just that made my day. It was fantastic. So it's those little things. So with customer service, one thing I will say, I listened to just today the Gecko Pod. You know, I listened to all their episodes, and they had some new breeders on, and they asked what's the biggest pet peeve people have with just the industry in general. And what both new people said was customer service, poor customer service, where people take forever to get back with an answer. Right, if you get left on DMs for not just a few hours, but even a few days, that can really sour people to you, and especially with a flooded market or what people perceive as a flooded market, that people can go somewhere else, right, and get a similar gecko for the most part, unless you're dealing with the top
you're making me want to
1%.
say is that while some people might say that let's say crested geckos are flooded, it's that they're not. It's that low end $50 geckos are flooded, and it's people that got in, for the wrong reasons in 2020, thinking they can make a real quick buck. I'm sure a lot of them did, but I mean, your $50 gecko isn't going to sell for $200 anymore. It's going to sell for $50, or your no head structure, covered in scars, malnourished female. I've seen people try to sell those for $600, and it's like no one's going to buy from you. And then what was the other thing that you said? I wanted to say, dang, I think I forgot. I do that too often.
That's okay. I just have so many gems, pop out of my mouth that it's hard to keep track.
It was my true. It was my biggest pet peeve in personally for me, right? I am what a lot of people will call a Dalmatian spot Nazi, and I do not want Dalmatian spots on any of my projects. To me, it's like you just, let's say I'm working on a really big project. It takes me 4 years to make what I wanted. And imagine that it took you so long to paint the Mona Lisa, and then at the end, you dip your fingers in ink and do this, right? After you just spent years doing this beautiful project, and you finally make that 1 in 32 odds animal, and then you just ruin it. You're just like, flex the specs. There's been too many times than I would like to even say where I have bought a gecko, asked, hey, does this have any Dalmatian spots? Can you please thoroughly check? I know that I'm annoying asking. I know. I need you to check. I will pay this instantly. Please tell me if there's any Dalmatian spots. Really quickly, they're like, nope, no Dalmatian spots. I've checked. Cool. I buy it. It comes in. The next day when it fires down, I look and I see that there's 5 Dalmatian spots on it. 1 on the edge of the tail, 1 under the ball sack or something, 1 in a toe pad, right? Whatever it may be. And I say, hey, I see a bunch of Dalmatian spots, or I even only see 1 Dalmatian spot. But I wouldn't have bought this animal if there was even 1 Dalmatian spot. And 0 out of the, let's say, 10 breeders that I've bought from have ever made any effort to make it right. And that's always been frustrating. I'm sure maybe 1 or 2 have. I don't remember. Luckily, you don't remember the decent experiences very well. You remember the really bad ones.
No.
And so, I remember that I bought a male that I thought would be perfect for my projects, and when I got him in, his color was totally different. And on top of that, when he fired down, I found 3 Dalmatian spots on him. So I messaged them and I said, hey, not only are his colors not very accurate, but I found Dalmatian spots on him. You swore he had no Dalmatian spots, and he's never produced any Dalmatian spot kids, even though that's not really how genetics work. That's not a selling point. I would like to return him. Can you give me a larger partial refund? I quite literally can never use the breeder. I just spent $1,200 on a male I can't do anything with. And they were like, we can give you a 10% refund. And that
Wow.
still doesn't sit right with me today. I'm not going to shout out anyone's names or whatever. Like I'm not in that business. I think that
No.
there's a line that you cross when you stop someone's ability to feed their family, and I'm not going to cross that line. But that is doing someone dirty. That is straight up like, I don't know, to me, it's a big problem. Me and my members, Discord community and everything, we talk about it sometimes. It's happened too many times. And so like I'll even sometimes be so confident in a project. If someone is like me about spots, I will be like, I guarantee there's no spots. And if spots do show up later in its life, I will give you a sibling or a similar gecko of the same quality and price for free. Just pay for the shipping down the road, even if it's 2 years from now. I don't do that often, but for the ones that I'm very confident, I want them to feel safe in their investment. I can guarantee you this has no spots. And that's also kind of when I was talking about how I saw that there was a niche in YouTube that needed to be filled. There was a niche in the gecko community that needed to be filled. Everybody's breeding stuff with spots. No one cared really until I got on the scene, started getting bigger, and started openly talking about it. People were too afraid to state that they didn't like them because everything has them. And so that's the problem with almost all exanthic projects now. There's Dalmatian spots in them. Nothing you can do about it. Even my completely spotless exanthic that I spent 2 years searching for and found and bought, he has still bred with females that have no spots, and they make spots. Could there be a dot inside of one of the toe pads that's not visible? Could there be a dow spot that was on a tail that dropped on one of the females? That's the most likely probability. And so if I get a tailless gecko breeder in, the first year I breed it to 1 or 2 very low end geckos because I want to make sure it's not going to, if I paired, for me, this is only my opinion. Okay, so crested gecko breeders, don't get mad at me.
Sure.
If I had, the night, like a $5,000 amazing top of the line genetically female, and I got a brand new super high end male that had no tail, I would have to make the risk decision of, do I do that pairing? Because I can't, and I wasn't able to get photos of him with the tail. I wouldn't do that pairing because I can't guarantee there's no Dalmatian spots on the tail that dropped. Because even if there were no spots on the tail when it dropped, if it dropped as a baby, once it became an adult, the Dalmatian gene could have represented later in life, 1 spot even on the tail. That 1 spot leads to you, half of the offspring from that male are covered in dots. Whether it be 1, it could be up to 20, just from the heterozygous form of Dalmatian. Let alone, I think there's also, dang fruit fly, I also think that there is a recessive version of the Dalmatian gene, because I have done multiple times pairing a spotless gecko to a spotless gecko, and they make geckos that have spots. Not many, but a few. So I do think that there is a weaker recessive version of the Dalmatian gene in the crested gecko hobby, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I've heard that before. And again, I'm not a geneticist, but I if enough people think have that experience and claim it might be a thing, it's something that I'm not going to say you're wrong.
Yeah, it's all theory.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. Obviously, I'm not a crested gecko person. I love crested geckos. I think they're really cool. They're just not what I want to focus my energy on. Just like I know you don't absolutely love gargoyles, and that's okay. We each have our thing. But with the gargoyles, we do not have anything like that, right? We've got basically stripes. We have way less than you guys do. You guys are rolling in different genetics, which is really cool. But we've got basically a base color, a pattern color, and then basically 3 different types of patterns. And then we've got structure. So that's all we're playing with. So there is zero chance when I hear your story of you bought a $12,000 or $1,200 gecko, right? And you couldn't breed him because of basically you kind of treat it like, gecko herpes, right? It's just going to spread like crazy.
And I know that I'm extreme in that opinion. I know I am.
But that's your prerogative. And that's the thing, is everybody should be breeding what they want to breed. And if you are that particular, people are going to know to go to you. I think it'll be funny, though, if someone goes to you and you're like, hey, I've got this baby. It's all spotted. And you want it for a discount. That's kind of just funny in itself.
I do that too. I made earlier this season, I made an incredible orange pattern, and the line is called Triple X. Really high pattern tiger banding, really beautiful gecko. But it had spots somehow. And I was like, all right, this would have been $1,000 gecko, but now it's $350. Who wants it? Because if I sell a gecko with spots for more than $350, right? everyone's going to be clowning on me. So I've dug myself into a grave
Yes, it will.
because sometimes I make geckos with spots somehow by accident. I literally, it's, even if it's a really nice like lily, that's like $150 lily or $200 lily now. I could never sell for more than that because I've dug my own grave, and so I'm going to own up to that. You know, that's just what I got to do. Because I also wouldn't even feel right selling a patterned gecko with spots for more than a certain price. Let's say 350 is that price tag.
Yeah.
Past that, it's like,
Sure.
if there are people that want to buy from me, I can't say honestly that this is a worthwhile investment for you. And a lot of my customers are people that are like, hey, I want to invest. What do I invest in? I'm here ready. I have X amount. I want to spend it. Hook me up. That's kind of been my main clientele this year, which has been really great because then I know what they're getting in for, so I can guide them in the right direction.
Yep. And those are the people you want to work with because they're going to keep coming back, which is awesome. Because I do that with you know, when I first started reaching out to people. Morph Market's great. I haven't had a lot of success selling on it, but I'm brand new. And me reaching out to certain breeders that I find either on YouTube or through social media, Instagram, I love going, hey, you know, I love your stuff. Hook me up. Where do you want to go? And I love getting their advice. Or talk about customer service feeling special. How special do you feel if there's not a listing for a gecko and they're like, hey, I got this in the back room, or I got this, you know, waiting in the wings. I was about to post it. What do you think? You know, that makes me feel like $1,000, right?
Yeah.
And so
honestly, that's like 70% of my sales, to be honest, is people like, hey, I saw you have this stuff. I like it. And I'm like, I actually have a lot more like this that I haven't gotten around to selling. Let me go take a picture. And then those usually sell. You know. The Morph Market is nice though, because then you can just do those big dumps and then you can just leave it. And so like, I'll probably just get like one message a week and maybe only 50% of them convert into a sale. But, you know, like that's 4 times a month where I'm possibly making anywhere from a $300 to $2,000 sale if it does end up going through. So like Morph Market's definitely worth the investment. I know a lot of people are not liking their new strategy and platform and trying to make copycats and stuff like that. I don't really know. All I know is that the number one ball python breeder in the world, Canova, or at least to me, they're the number one, right? I'm sure other people have opinions. But that's also like, I want it to be the Canova of crested geckos. That's my ultimate goal. I want people to think that we are synonymous in quality, which is a huge, huge thing to say, by the way, like enormous. Like some people might be like the gall that this guy has. But that's my goal. I asked them personally, like, hey, how come you guys don't have a shop on your website? They were like, Morph Market's the number one reptile selling platform in the world. Why would we use our own website when we can have access to every reptile enthusiast in the hobby? And I was like, fair point. I don't need it on my website then. So I don't have a store on my website. You click available, it leads to my Morph Market that handles it all.
Yep. No, it makes sense. And, you know, it's really user-friendly. In the little bit that I've used it.
Sometimes it's really not, though.
No. So, well, it's always easier for me because I've got, 5 geckos to sell all year, holding back everything where, you know.
Oh, damn, really?
Contrast how many geckos have you sold?
I have no idea.
Major difference there.
Maybe I've sold 80 geckos or 100 geckos this year. That's probably, I cannot tell you actually. No, because that's not including wholesale stuff. I've probably shipped like 80 of wholesale, you know. And so like the wholesale stuff too. I mean, I don't advertise that I'm a wholesaler or whatever, but you know, even if you're doing some, you know, even if you're doing a pairing that you'd be like, this is like top echelon $1 million pairing, you're still going to make $50 geckos sometimes. And so another thing to consider is like if you are doing the high end stuff, like I try to focus on, although I definitely don't have the highest end, by the way. You know, I have unique stuff, I would say, or I work on stuff that not everybody works on. And so I have maybe the highest quality of niche things. But, you know, there's a lot of other breeders that have way more experience, way better stock than I do. But I think that I just go a different direction. I'm not just making more pinstripe tricolors like, you know, 90% of the hobby really tries to focus on. But, you know, you're still doing, I don't know, it's interesting. It's almost like it will hurt my business if I'm listing $75 geckos. There's really no point. Even if it's a $125 gecko, I'd rather wholesale it instead of taking studio pictures of it, listing it, providing lineage for this $125 gecko. And this part also, it sucks to say this, but it's the reality, is that those are going to be the worst clients, truly, or the worst customers, from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I love all of my customers, and I try to help everybody. My goal is to be like a man of the people. But there
Mm-hmm.
are, I recently had someone that was like, hey, do you have any really cheap breeders that you're letting go of? And I was like, I actually do. I've got like 5 or 6 females that I can let go of in the $350 to $500 range. And then they're like, awesome. We're local. I want to come to your facility. And I was like, all right, we can do that. Let's set up this time. And they ghosted me that first day, didn't reply. And I was like, okay. And then the next day they were like, dude, I'm so sorry. We were super busy. I'm like, I get it. It's fine. Luckily, I work from home. So it's not like I had to take time off work or anything. So then they're like, all right, today at 2 o'clock, we'll come. And 2 o'clock rolls around. I text them, hey, let me know how close you are. And then I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to start doing some ranch work that I have because I've got stuff to do all the time. It's like 5 o'clock. I look, they've read and seen the message on Morph Market, and they never texted. So I was like, all right, decline to respond to user and block, like never talk to me again. And so like, there's other times where I'm trying to sell, $100. I've done it before, $100 gecko on Morph Market. Oh, can you do a 3-month payment plan? Can you pay for shipping? Can you do this? Can you provide food? Is it shipping with an enclosure? Is that? Hey, I have a 10,000 gallon wall enclosure that I'm going to put this 3-gram gecko into. It's like, okay, this isn't going to happen. Like I can't, yeah.
No.
I love all my customers. Don't twist my words, people. But it's just like in terms of business, it's just that's something now that I'll offer 10 wholesale
Well, no, what
geckos
I'm
for
taking
$500
away from
shipped
this,
instead.
so what I take away from what you're saying is not that you don't appreciate all your customers, is that there are certain people out there, and I completely will stand behind this if anybody wants to come at me for it. There are some people that should not have pets. If you are nickeling and diming, $100 gecko, right? How much do you think that enclosure is going to cost you? Okay,
Yeah.
even if you go through the tub setup and then you've got to buy, feeders and food. I mean, just a bag of Pangea every so often, you're going to spend money. So, I'm sorry, but what I hear from you, and this is true for me, correct me if I'm wrong, but you care enough about your animals to not deal with people that are going to devalue them so much that it's not worth selling, because I don't want to sell my
that's a whole
babies, even
different
if they're my
aspect
lower
too.
end babies.
Yeah. I mean, there's never been a gecko that I've sold for a couple $1,000s that I'm like, man, I hope they don't like kill it by accident. If you're buying a real nice gecko, you're going to take really good care of it,
Yes. Not that we want to equate dollar signs to just overall value of life.
Yeah.
But when people invest their time, their money into something, they clearly value it and they're going to take care of it, which is the kind of people that we want to work with.
And that's another reason why I love like when someone does a bigger ticket sale, let's say, if that's the right wording, that I love throwing in free geckos, or I love throwing in, whatever I can, because how much we're not in something like bearded dragons, ball pythons, reticulated pythons, where food might cost a couple dollars per feeding, or where, we're feeding, slushies to them with bugs blended in them and stuff. I know gargoyles eat a lot more insects than crested geckos, and crested geckos love insects. And a lot of people say that you're force feeding them if you give them insects. That's a whole different topic. How much does it really cost to make a baby? 38 cents in food throughout the breeding season, right? That female, the gecko's doing all the work for us. So like when people are like, oh, I can't go down on this or blah, 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 or I'm not open to any sort of haggling. Dude, I love haggling. That's like, I honestly, even if someone talks me down on pricing, if that sale goes through, I'm like, whoop, whoop, let's go. Like, I love it. Business is fun to me. And so like, that's another thing that I tell people is like, you got to be open to haggling. Don't be afraid to try. I even had a bigger breeder like call me out on a podcast or something, because they were like, oh, he's always haggling. I'm like, yeah, I'm good at business. What can I say? Like, I'm not the best, but like, I know how to get a deal. Anytime I've gone to a reptile show, if something's listed for 500, how about 400 cash? That's like a safe, respectable offer. Especially offer cash.
Right.
You don't need to tell Big Brother about it, stuff like that. just do your stuff. I don't know. It's all fun and games, really.
Well, there's a difference between haggling and knocking off $100 because someone's giving you cash, which is every single breeder I've ever talked to at a show.
Always.
So
Yeah.
every last one, if you have cash, you can negotiate. But
Yeah.
not only that, but it's not like you're undercutting the market and you're taking one of your beautiful triple X's, right? And you're saying, okay, here's a $3,000 adult female, and I'm going to sell it for $150 just to screw over the market. It's completely different things. So people need to realize that, also we need to make room. And speaking of that, it's becoming winter right now. Right. And so I see for the very first time since I'm finally, selling my geckos, holy cow. I don't know if it's just this year, but the fire sale that I see before the end of the season, right, before shipping stops, people are just tanking their prices. I mean, I even said, I'll take a reasonable offer for the last 2 geckos I have, a reasonable offer. Someone offered me $10 today.
Epic.
Like, no, I think they knew they were being funny. I think, I know that.
Oh, yeah.
But
That's good.
it's one of those things where, let's be realistic here. And what advice do you have for people with winter? Do you do those winter sales?
I'm in Texas.
Yeah, but you still can't ship up here to me.
True, but I can pretty much ship almost all year round. Summer is the bar that Texans, we have summer sales. Like, hey, it's the last week and it's already 90, but if we ship late at night and it gets to you in another state where it's still mild out, then we can make it work. Or I'm working on doing like extreme weather shipping packaging, where it's literally like a giant box with a giant super thick cooler in it that can barely fit, maybe 5 geckos in it, but it's got this much insulation. I'm trying to find the right boxes and everything. But even then, I still wouldn't ship a gecko if it's above 90. That's kind of my cutoff, just because I know the FedEx system is pretty trustworthy, and I know, okay, I'll ship late at night. My cutoff's at 7 p.m., luckily. So, I mean, the gecko is only in transit for less than 12 hours sometimes. And on a plane or in an air-conditioned facility most of the time. This, of course, is barring delays, things like that. So there are a lot of risks to weigh, and I try to always mitigate as much risk as possible. But I've also found that, when we first were getting into the hobby, we as in people around the time that I got in, the common knowledge was if a crested gecko gets above 80 degrees, it'll die instantly. For a short while, I tested keeping all my geckos at 82, 84, and they were all fine. You don't want to keep them that hot. It makes them actually lose calories because their stuff's working on overdrive. 75, 74, 72, stay in the low 70s. Everything will go great. But yeah, when it comes to that, I mean, what sort of question do you really mean by what advice I have for winter sales?
So, you were saying you do offer those sales during the summer, right? And so more of it is, should people cut their prices, or should we be more patient as a community, grow up your geckos that don't sell and move them? I mean, it's a personal thing. Some people have different opinions on how much space you have.
Absolutely.
But,
and I mean, a lot of breeders, if you have a lot of other sources of income and this is not your, main source of income, it's really easy to be like, only sell adults. You'll make the most. It's like, cool. Well, I need to pay my mortgage this month and I'm $500 short. So I don't know what to tell you, right? Like that happens to some of us at this, when we do it full time. So, but also I find that I've gotten really good at looking at certain babies and knowing the cutoff, right? So let's say that there's like 3 different tiers. There's holdbacks. This is really good, but not exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to keep it until it's an adult and sell for a good price tag because it's a good one. Or cut your losses. It's not worth it. And that happens sometimes. A lot of this is really just what would be the right way to word this? A lot of this is really just like higher. No, there's a way. Fancier gambling, or you know what I'm trying to say. Because it's genetics, it's 50-50 chance. And then when you're trying to get, a 6 gene animal, you're working now with 1 in 32, 1 in, crazy odds. So you're
Right.
still always going. And I also came into this not understanding genetics at all, because I bought, a bunch of really nice geckos at first. Let's say I had $2,000 geckos that I bred together. And my understanding was all the babies they got to be $1,000 or more.
Nope.
And I was still hatching out basic pinstripes from what I thought were the highest end pairings. Started learning about genetics. Of course, that's going to happen actually 50% of the time, if not more, depending on what you're trying to go for. So that's why I started doing some like wholesale packages this year, because I'll still hatch out flames from two triple X pairings. They'll still sometimes make a $200 Harlequin. And
Yeah.
it just happens. So try
And I
to
think people are
learn
getting.
to separate those three tiers, right? The holdback, this is great, hold it back to sell. Not worth investing the time and effort into. Cut your losses.
One thing I find interesting is, looking at some of the bigger breeders too, and I'm looking for a creative way because everybody's so worried about copying each other, right? I don't know if you've noticed that, like, oh, they're copying me on this. I'm like, sometimes if you have a good idea,
Yeah.
being copied is a fantastic thing. But why I bring that up is how people are getting, not rid of, but selling geckos, especially making it a little more fun or creative. Like Altitude Exotics, he's doing a great job with those mystery boxes, right? He does lives to show you what you bought after you buy it. You've got Morph Menagerie, who I watch every one of their, even though I don't buy crested geckos,
Yeah.
I think it's fun just to see what are they selling, what are those geckos going for, right? And I think it'd be cool if someone did sort of that, sort of style that they do, but with other species, right? And maybe that exists. I just don't know it. So if that does exist, put it down in the comments for me and let me know.
Yeah,
But
I know that. I know them personally, and AJ always jokes with me because I've been like, maybe I'll do like an auction, and he's like, only do an auction if you're okay with selling for 10% of what it's worth. And I'm like, all right,
yeah,
then no, because that's not really what I want to do. I guess there's some stuff that you make that maybe it'd be fun, but yeah, I've just found the best success with listing. And if something's below, like let's say that $150, $200 price tag, just wholesale it or something, or local selling. I love selling locally. It's like it's such a wholesome experience to bring someone to this facility. And then when they're looking at this baby and they're on the fence about it, I'm like, let me show you the parents. And I can go get the parents. Be like, so,
Yep.
the reason I paired and then I'm educating, I paired these together because this complemented this feature. And so I think that this baby actually achieved that in that one avenue. It did improve the head structure and it did improve the contrast in it too.
yeah.
So those are things, I love selling in person like that. But, sometimes that type of animal is delegated to only local stuff at shows or in person. But yeah,
So you don't hate shows?
no, I don't. So I did a show.
I saw that video.
Yeah, I did a show, and regardless of how well we did, right? Or it's we, right? It's not just me. It is Robby's Reptiles, but like my wife helps out. I have employees that help, or good friends that just help out of the goodness of their heart. I've had some friends, buy into it. They've bought geckos and stuff, and then I just keep them, breed them. When I sell a baby, here's $300 or whatever. And they're like, cool,
That's
made back
cool.
my money, because I have, the ability that adding on even 10 geckos means nothing to me at this point, not money wise, but effort and care wise. What's 10 more gecko? I'm not going to notice. I'm not going to notice a difference. So what was I going to say? Yeah, I did a show, and it's amazing being able to, have a kid for the first time hold a gecko, and then that leads them to get one, or that leads them to eventually want to become a breeder because they love the experience so much. You're really influencing, for lack of a better word, normies into this niche hobby that we're into. And so I definitely see the value and importance of it, but I still stand by, like, other than for the novelty of it, I have no desire to vend Tinley more than maybe once or twice for the experience. But like, people fail to realize the amount of stress and danger that goes into it. Like, sometimes those animals are in delis for a week if you're driving there, or you got to ship them overnight. What if they're delayed? You have some DOAs or something, then you have them out on a table. You leave them at the warehouse in the venue the whole weekend, from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So for me in my local shows, like, I take them home and I put them back in their enclosures, or I only do one day, just because I mean, right, when I ship an order to Korea or something, it's the same thing. They're probably in a deli for 5 days, but that's, they have to be in order to get there. But when it comes to, I have the control and the ability to not make them go through that. That's, and I see the logic. And also crested geckos aren't that intelligent. Like, I really honestly think sometimes they forget that they're stressed, because I've had some show up after 3 days of being in shipment, and the second I open up the deli, I put food in front of them and they eat right out of my hand. And then I put them on my shoulder while I'm getting their enclosure ready, and they're chill as a pill,
Right.
So, I mean,
pros and cons to all of it.
Yeah, and of course, some geckos are going to be more stressed than others, and they do have individual personalities on some level. That's another funny thing is the customers that do buy those $125 stuff, they always ask, "What's this gecko's personality like? Can I blah blah blah? Will this one be good with kids?" And I'm like, dude, all of them are fine except for 1% that are psychos. Like,
Yep. No, but those are the people too that are like, is it like my dog? Can I teach it tricks? Can I put it on my shoulder like a bearded dragon and just leave it there for hours? I'm like, well, you shouldn't do that with a bearded dragon either. But
the crested geckos, honestly, I do like just put them on my shoulder. I usually have one during a show or something, but then I thought it'd be crawling on the wires and rip it or something.
But even that, they can stay there, and then some of them are great. Some are just like at Tinley. Speaking of that, potato with. Have you ever seen Rack House? How they always have that really old one. She just sits there, right? Yeah. And they can, but every night you're not going to sit and watch TV. Like you can do that with ball pythons to a degree, or bearded dragons a little bit easier. But they're not dogs. They're not these animals that are. Some are just vicious and some aren't. There are angrier geckos or more territorial, I would say. But if you're buying a crested gecko in general, or even a gargoyle gecko, chances are they're pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny because like sometimes we'll be like, oh, this one's a spaz or whatever. Really, it's just a proper animal, right? It just has a defense mechanism that it acts on, or it is initiating fight or flight, and it has chosen either fight or flight. Like that's basic animal instincts. So it's funny that we'll be like 1% of them, will be like total spazzes. It's like, no. For some reason, not for some reason, in captivity, they become more docile. But yeah, so it's just funny that we're like, whoa, this one's a spaz. Really, it's just a normal wild animal. Yeah.
This is the one that would survive in the wild, right? The one that just sits there is the dead one. So unless it's, that's why I love the Uris is, their main defense other than their tail, spitting goo at you, is just camouflage. And so they move slow, and that's all they have to do, which is really cool. So they're easy to handle. Man, we could keep talking, and I really am enjoying chatting with you. There's so many things on my list of questions that I did not get to, but I think we're going to have to
rapid fire this if you want.
All right, really rapid fire. Let's try this. Okay,
let's do it.
So, all right. Let's talk about isopods real quick. You're recently getting into those. What's your favorite species you have right now?
Favorite species, I have a handful for the isopods. Cappuccinos, I think, are just cute little coffee beans. They also happen to be pretty expensive, which is just...
the irony in the name.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my goodness. When I first wanted to get in, right? I talk about if you do this full time, you need multiple sources of revenue. So like, I'm sure some people will be like, you shouldn't keep insects unless you absolutely love them, which I do love them now, but I originally was like, this seems like a good investment, an upsell. Someone gets a gecko. Hey, let's add on some isopods if you want, good price, whatever. But then it's oddly satisfying taking care of them. I've had that same reaction with like the red runners that I breed. It's like, it's awesome to like feed them like 6 bananas and you go back in and they're all, only the peel is left and they're completely eaten. Like I like not wasting, and being able to fully utilize everything. Isopods have become another little obsession of mine, but mainly the springtails I've found have been 1, way better sales, 2, way more interesting and cool, because now, I mean, some of the springtails I have sell for like $2.50 each for a microscopic little
$2.50 per springtail.
I sell for $2, but I mean, I'm sure I could sell for a little more.
How do you even count them out?
I
It's
don't.
like
And so
when
I
you
tell
buy
people,
crickets,
I'm like, yeah, no, like they'll be like, oh, I'll get 50 of those. And I'm like, all right, it's going to be about that many. Cause I'm just looking and being like, I think I've grabbed 50 at this point. Or like I'll grab a
yeah,
big scoop and I'm like, there's probably 100 in here. Good for you. And I just package it because I'm
yeah.
not
It's probably
people that
usually more.
yeah, I've bought from people where they count it out with like a little tiny paintbrush and they count each individual. I'm not doing that. Sorry. So
No,
sometimes you might get less. If you feel that you got way less, I'll just refund you whatever's fair, right? Like I don't have time to be counting out microscopic springtails, but they're turning out to be a way like I've probably invested like $1,500 into isopods now. If you include food, the high end bins, the ventilation, the soil because you got to get the right soil, you got to get the right water because apparently these things that exist everywhere in the world for millions of years, the
very
second you give
fragile.
them anything but distilled water, they just die. Right. So all this stuff, or you got to disinfect all the leaves you get. I don't do that. A lot of other people that I talk to are like, you don't need to do that. Like if you
Hmm.
disinfect them, then they're more prone to molding in the enclosure and stuff. So I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I know what's on my property. Nothing bad's here. We're good. But like, I got in because I found out people were selling like the wild type blue powders, the wild type in Texas, for $1 each or 50 cents each. And I was like, okay. I went outside, flipped over a pallet, and I got 50 of them or 30 of them. It was 30. And then I just forgot about them in a tub. 6 months later, I've got like 2,000. They just spawn into existence, and I didn't even take care of them.
That's
So now I take
awesome.
care of them, and they're just propagating, keep going, keep going. So I mean, it's just so interesting.
Yeah, that's better than the stock market right now with rate of
Yeah,
return on that.
I've
So,
always, I've never been into stocks or crypto or anything like that. This is my savings account because if I really needed the money, I could
yep,
probably just sell one of my breeders and it'd sell immediately. So I'm not too worried.
that's awesome. Oh, that's great. All right, so next question, because I think that's a really cool topic. We could talk forever on just
Yeah,
those alone. And maybe I got to talk to you after this about buying some. Maybe not the $2 for every springtail. I don't have that kind of money, but
I'm out for
but
now. I need to let them recuperate. But yeah, like I just shipped out a bunch this
so
morning.
that's awesome. My other question that I wanted to talk about is you're famous for those enclosures behind you. I mean, talk about an absolute,
Famous.
beautiful setup.
Yeah.
They're famous on, in our circles.
Yeah.
Controversial to a degree, you got some
For some
flack from
reason,
some people. Some
people
people,
just want to not be efficient, I guess, and they think they maybe they feel guilty for being efficient. I think is really what it comes down to. They feel that if it's
yeah,
too easy or if it's efficient, if it's too efficient, then they're maybe they're not treated. I don't know. I think it has to do with like a personal reason as opposed to an objective reason.
yeah, and I think a lot of us want to find where's that fine line between, like you said, efficient. Like a lot of us want to go on vacation, right? And
Hmm.
so at some point you got to hire somebody to take care of your collection. I want to get to a point. I'm getting new enclosures. Actually, my first one today coming in, and I want to make sure there's a mist system on it so that if I go away, they don't have to mist every single day.
Yep.
Trying out different things, and I've looked at, there's cost, right? Everybody could have the perfect system if they had unlimited funds,
Yep.
but I would say those enclosures, especially with all the sales going on at the Container Store, are a viable option for a lot of people. you know I think where people also get a little bit hung up is it square inches that the gecko has access to, what's humane, what's not. People have very
This
strong
so
opinions on that.
that's another thing is that my
um,
adult of these tubs, which are this size over here, this size behind me is juvenile. That's
yep,
adults. It's the exact recommended size for an adult. It's just horizontal. The exact
yep.
recommended size, 12 by 12 by 18.
Which, what's crazy to me too, especially with the gargoyles, I know that they're clearly all arboreal geckos, right? But the more I do research on the gargoyles, they're actually more scrubland kind of geckos,
Mm-hmm.
which is not super high trees.
Interesting.
Most of the places where they find them are 2 feet off the ground, right? And so you don't need to, and even just watching my geckos, it's an 18-18-24 right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the time they are not all the way up at the top, right?
Yeah.
Unless they're basking a little bit, because I do think that they need, gargoyles need a little more heat than crested geckos. But that's just another thing we could talk about. But
That's interesting.
you know, and then I got the tubs down here. They do just as well, and it doesn't have half of the height.
Yeah.
So a lot of the breeders I talk to, 18 inches is all you need height wise, if that.
And another thing that a lot
not
of
that we
people are
want to
too
keep them in
afraid
like
to
a
talk
12.
about is they will do better in tubs than any other system.
Yes.
And people don't want to admit that. I've kept in glass aquarium enclosures, exoterras, really fancy, bioactive, constant shedding issues, impaction issues. I've lost countless, geckos back when I was first starting, keeping them in exoterras with dirt and soil and doing everything how all the pet tubers say you have to, otherwise you're abusing them. And I lost too many, and I lost eggs too. And this is a business. Keeping in a bioactive, you're literally throwing your production out the window, because they'll lay eggs somewhere where you don't notice, and then maybe they hatch eventually, or they don't, and then they're molded in the bottom because they didn't have enough humidity, or they collapse, et cetera, et cetera. They do better in tubs. I mean, there's just no other way about it. And then, yeah.
Well, especially depending on where you live. I mean, like my setup here, I have to spray this. I have it's if you look over to the side, there's its own misting system just for that enclosure, just because to keep the humidity up. It's a balance, right? The saturation of the soil gets so high because to keep the humidity up in the tank, I have to spray so much constantly. Where with these, I don't have to put hardly any, cocoa fiber in the bottom. I spray them once every 3 days, and it keeps the humidity. And it's the ambient humidity. They're not frogs, so you don't want them to be soaked all the time. You just want that ambient humidity, and it's so easy with these. And so I'm playing around with something because I think PVC mimics that to a degree, especially if it doesn't have all the vents, which I think people want to go to. But PVC is expensive, and there's a lead time.
Ludicrously expensive.
Yeah.
Like,
you try to outfit your setup there with PVC.
Oh yeah, I'd be bankrupt. I mean, even each one of these baby racks that I have, it holds 39 tubs. Each one was like $700, and I had 6 of them. So it's like, if you were just starting out, even if you filled all of those up, maybe you might not be able to recoup those funds in one season, which is a reality of it. And I mean, these tubs. Another big complaint some people have is that they're expensive. It's like, all right, go buy a PVC enclosure, a 12 by 12 by 18. It's going to be $180 for one PVC enclosure. It's like, okay, do an Exoterra. It's going to cost you $120, $150. For the same thing, you can get a tub. It's $40, and the Container Store does 25% off sales constantly. So they're $30. It's like,
right.
Yeah, you could go and build a rack out of plywood in your basement, or you can go and use dollar store tubs. It's like now you're sacrificing too much, and you're losing quality and ruggedness, as well as longevity, as well as efficiency. But if you really are just trying to save $1, I mean, it's another thing that I ask my video clients when they're so focused on budget. I'm like, what's the goal of this project? Is it to spend $1,000, or is it to accomplish a goal? Are you trying to increase sales, or are you just trying to spend $1,000? How can I help you here?
Right. Yep. And there's that balance of what's your end goal, right? And my end goal, as much as I've thought about the enclosure you have behind you. They're something I'll probably still consider in the future. But for me, I want something. I'm small enough where it's not going to break the bank 100% if I go more the PVC route. But I also want to be able to see my geckos a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
Which is just a personal preference. Honestly, what's better for the gecko is you leave them the hell alone, right? The geckos that grow the fastest are the ones we don't touch. So for them, if you want to talk about what's humane, maybe just leaving them alone where you can't see them all the time and they can't see you and get stressed out might be a more humane thing to do. So, let people have their opinion. It works for you. I think it looks great. Aesthetically, you've made it look phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you sharing that.
There's a lot of work and thought and planning that went into this facility. I knew that I wanted a theme. I didn't want the same looking setup as everybody else, because most people, tan wood floor with plants everywhere and blah, blah, blah. Or it's all white, like you're in a Mr. Clean commercial or something. And I was just like, how can I set myself apart? And so I thought about it and I was like, okay, I think everything needs to be black because like I talked about earlier, I like shadows and all of my photos have always had shadows.
Mm-hmm.
This is all what we in the industry call negative fill. So anywhere that I am, there's tons of shadow because the black is absorbing light. The walls and the racks are absorbing light. And then I have really powerful top-down lighting that I've diffused heavily with huge grids in order to achieve that kind of look. So it looks like it's really bright because it's super bright. Like it hurts when you first walk in here to compensate for how everything is dark. Besides, like, you can see some insulation back there because whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of, I just leaned into the shadows. It's cool. I know how to work with it because of my experience. Yeah.
No, it's very cool. The only other thing I would say about that is, if I only had 3 geckos, right? They were strictly pets. I wouldn't even go for the Exoterras. You ever watch Tanner from Serpa Design? His custom enclosures for his new cows?
No.
If you haven't, go watch that. The builds are phenomenal. But this guy goes, he's a craftsman. And even he did an updated video, and it's not perfect, right? They're all bioactive enclosures, and there's 60 gallons each for each gecko, something that most people could never do, right? If you have a collection. But I think that's kind of cool, right? You do it for your purpose, and you do the best for your animals. But he was saying, certain plants melt, and he has to adapt certain things, and where yours is more foolproof, right? You're not having to replace everything inside because it didn't work out. Right, and change their environment. Yours is very steady and stable and easy to keep clean, which is great.
Yeah, so that was a big thing.
All right,
the sanitary part.
Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, the sanitary, making sure everything's sanitary.
Especially with a collection your size, it could get gross fast, and that's not a reputation anybody wants.
Yeah.
All right. We said we'd rapid fire this, and we're failing miserably, but that's okay because you got great information. I think so too. All right, one last question that I'll ask is: right now, I'm about to, after this, hopefully I still have enough time. I will make time. I'm dropping off a trade, right? And when I say trades, I'm talking about I give you this gecko, you give me that gecko. Yep. Do you like trades? Do you do trades? And have you ever done trades where you have to go and ship the gecko? It's not just a local thing. This is my first time actually paying for shipping. They're paying for shipping. And so what's your experience with that? Because I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, I'm, again, like my goal is kind of to be, a man of the people. Whether I become really big or not in the future, who knows? But, I hope to. But I'm just a normal guy. And that's kind of a big focus that I want with my business, is that it is Robby's Reptiles. It's just me, and I have reptiles and I sell them, right? And so I'm very open. Some of the best advice I've ever gotten is that there's 3 ways to increase your wealth: pay less taxes, spend less money, or make more money. And so when you can accomplish any of those things, you're moving in the right direction. And so, if someone has something that I want and I have something that they want, who cares about making the sale? If we're trading, cool. I get what I want. You get what you want. I'm very open to trades. I recently did a trade with someone and got a beautiful red lily white male that is 50% possibly het exanthic. And so that opens up the chance of making hypo lily white exanthics in the future. And so I traded a couple of red patternless females that I had lying around and some cash and got that gecko, for practically nothing. And it could turn out to be really something in my collection. And so I think trades are great. They can be advantageous depending on the situation. For me though, because I am a bigger breeder, I would say, what I'll usually require is that they ship it to me first. I check the animal, the health and everything. Then I ship that the day that I receive. Because worst case scenario, if I was some, scammer that was trying to take the gecko from you and ghost you, all you got to do is go make a single post on Facebook saying Robby took a gecko from you and didn't fill up his end of the deal, and my business is ruined forever. So I'm lucky enough to be in that position where I can require that kind of rule. If you both are just normal, you just are hobbyists and stuff, it's a lot more complicated. I have done stuff where I've done it at the same time because I trust the person and I've done business with them before. But, it's going to be a risk that you got to weigh yourself, because there definitely is possibilities where you ship yours, they ship theirs. This has happened to me too, where I shipped mine, got there fine. They shipped theirs, it got here fine. The very next day it dropped dead for no reason.
Oh,
and I'm like, hey, this happened. What do we do? And, that puts both of you in an uncomfortable situation. Or worse, you ship on the same day, yours arrives dead and theirs is fine. Now it's like, is the deal just off? You both lost out on something. Do they replace it? Them replacing it is offering even more value than what the original trade was. Are you supposed to offer more now? I don't know. So you got to navigate that with whoever you're trying to trade with. And there are risks and stuff. So.
Yeah, but that's even true just selling geckos, you ship out geckos after you receive the money, and there's that risk, and you've got to have that good customer service, which we talked about.
Yeah,
and,
that's another
typically when you're trading
is like it's so crazy how people just see my videos online or randomly, not even seeing my videos, will be like, yeah, I'll buy this. All right, here's $350 of my hard-earned money that I'm choosing to spend on a luxury that is an animal. I hope that you send it. Like, that's a lot of trust. And so I love that I have that trust with people. That's a very valuable thing, I would say. And a lot of this hobby is innate trust. And sometimes that's scary.
Yeah. Well, and being on long form, kind of videos like this, or even just being in front of somebody for so many hours in your videos, you build a relationship with people without even realizing it, right? Because even though you don't know them, they've spent hours with you, right? In a digital format, which psychologically is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, I know.
They feel like they know you.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's why, I'm a talker anyway, but I feel comfortable talking to you because I've watched so many of your videos. I've seen your mannerisms, and so there's versus somebody who, I've never seen before we turn on the camera. There's always a little bit of a difference, I'll make it work, but it is something just kind of fun to mention. And even just, before I was brand new. And I remember when my wife, I sold him a gecko, and it was over, let's just say it was a few $1,000s. Okay. And I was expecting when we first started, okay, I get half the money now after I ship it, then I get half the money a little bit later on, and kind of talking to other people. They're like, no, you get the money up front, then you ship it. And I was like, people give you that much money and they just trust you? They're like, it's a small industry. If you screw someone over, your reputation's done. If you want to do this long term. So there's some comfort in that, but people do get screwed, and hopefully those people get out of the industry. But we're trustworthy guys, right?
I'd think so.
So, yeah. All right. Hey, Robby, I have had a blast chatting with you. Like I said, I could talk to you for a lot longer about a lot more stuff. Probably have you back on eventually. But I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you? Obviously, you've got a YouTube channel called Robby's Reptiles. Where else can people find you if they're interested in finding you or your geckos?
It's just Robby's Reptiles everywhere. You can just Google me and I'll pop up everywhere.
Well, hey, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I hope people, even though this isn't very gargoyle centric, this is very NewCal industry centric, and I've learned a ton from you. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. And I hope some of my, word vomit is helpful to some people about cameras and everything.
Oh, yeah. And if not, we'll do some more research and go to that YouTube Academy. So we'll keep the algorithm going, man. All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll chat with you soon, man. Bye.
You too, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, if you've enjoyed this video and want to encourage me to make more gargoyle gecko content, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, and maybe check out one of the videos right over there. I'll see you next time on Gecko Cove.